table, which seemed not to be a problem for them. Instead, the LeBlanc goes away.
A little surprising to see it. I mean, GBM did play it decently well in the late game, still finding some opportunities, and maybe they're just saying that based off everything we saw out of that game, the one thing that seems like it could be an issue if the game went differently is LeBlanc, because if that first gank works out, doesn't get solo killed, starts going off in the side lane split push, and that becomes a very difficult game for GCU to win. We'll have to see, though, because EUnited is going for a very different ban strategy over here on the blue side, leaving a lot of quote-unquote OPs up. Zac is going to make it through. Caitlyn and Thresh banned out, two things that make sense. But the question is Maokai going to get through? Is Zac going to get through? How many of these kind of super strong tanks are going to make it through? Yeah,
with the Elise being banned away from Goldcoin United, at least one of those two tanky, potentially top lane or junglers is going to be wanting getting through in the form of Zac or Maokai. Maokai's been the one that we see Torn playing a lot more. Yes, Cho'Gath is still on the table, so that could be a first pick away by Goldcoin United. Is eUnited now taking a lot of time, and they will ban the Zac away.
That's something that a couple teams have started doing on red side, is leaving Zac towards the last ban. It got some panic sometimes out of blue side teams, making them get that ban themselves. GCU not kind of falling for that bluff. They wait until eUnited needs to ban it. It seemed like they're ready to first pick it, but that makes GCU tunneling on the Kalista pick as the first choice for them, and eUnited grabs both beefy frontliners right away.
Yeah, so they take the Maokai away from Santorin, was the one playing that one, and now Cho'Gath is going to go over to Licorice for a second game in a row, but it will open up solo to something he's a lot more comfortable on, with that Gnar being locked in.
Yes, he's an excellent Gnar player. I assume Gnar has good matchups into Cho'Gath. Have not seen it quite as much, but it will be able to, most likely jump out of any ruptures that come its way, and it's going to outrange the Vorpal spikes. Should be a decent matchup overall, so that means it's probably playing into the Maokai, which, generally speaking, Maokai does fine into Gnar. It's a little bit of a skilly matchup where when in mini Gnar form, Maokai has a couple windows of opportunity to get trade advantages, as well as gank setup if they're able to bring the Cho'Gath in. Similarly, when he goes Mega Gnar, the Gnar player can, of course, find opportunities onto the Maokai, as well as just generally having a little bit of the bully advantage, given that he's a ranged champion. So a very skill-intensive matchup early on.
No, you see, actually, the Ashe will be what eUnited settle on for their last pick of the first pick phase here of Champ Select. And that's going to be something that definitely is very accustomed to playing. The Ashe has kind of been one of his go-to stable champions. Of course, you know, for the Ashe, the Varus, the Caitlyn coming out of the Spring Split, still continuing to play those utility or just kind of safe backline kinds of threats. This time, the Tristana's been banned away from him. He's going to go with that cross map. Not only that, but the vision control coming out from the Ashe.
I like GCU's plan overall so far, which is they kind of double down on their strategy of saying eUnited can have these tanks, will outperform you in late game team fighting situations. They grab the Taric again, they have the Gnar, they grab the Kalista, and they ban out the Tristana, something that was also giving them issues when it came to those late game team fights. Tristana found the first kill onto Fly often and was just impossible to deal with once she has that range advantage and kind of kite out the tanks. So GCU targeted those two carries from the previous game and said, all right, let's run it back, mostly the same otherwise in terms of the Kalista, Taric bot lane, and a tankier style champion on the top side.
We have the Cassiopeia and the Talia, so the double Shurian mid lane bans coming out from eUnited, as those are the first mid lane bans coming out from them of this champion select. And Xerath, a respect ban coming out against GBM. I mean, we saw Bjergsen play it not that long ago in NALCS just last week. It didn't go very well, but Bjergsen Xerath is not GBM Xerath, so they could be potentially sniffing something out here that eUnited may be trying to set up.
What's funny is overall, Fly was known as a fantastic Xerath player as well. Yep. Both GBM and Fly had great showings on that champion. GBM probably a little bit more well known for it, as Fly kind of really made his name with Aurelion Silva. He's been playing forever as well. We'll see eUnited continue to kind of double down on the beefy frontline strategy. They pick up the Alistar. They played that a lot in their series win over Big God's Jackals, and it looked very good if it can avoid getting bullied early on. The nice thing is you already see the Taric, who's not a super large bully matchup, so it might be fine here in this bot lane. We'll have to see if GCU are going to exploit its early levels at all.
And we see Gragas being picked up here for Goldcoin United jungle lock-in. The Sejuani was still available on the table, but they decided to go for the Gragas this time around. Instead, they got a little bit more AoE and a little bit more team fight potential now coming out of the Orianna. Less damage overall than the Cassiopeia, but more targets to get that one. Now eUnited may be looking to go with something a little bit more assassiny in the mid lane, but instead, it is going to be a Karthus pickup I have no idea the last time I saw this in professional play.
Actually, not that long ago, Froggen did play.
Oh, right.
And then I believe Piglet played it as well. And a couple people in spring started busting it out of nowhere. But we're in full-on hyper carry mode, Tom.
Yeah.
Everyone's playing super tanks. Everyone's playing late-game teamfight champions. Well, Karthus is one of the OG ultimate teamfight champions. It actually has a really strong laning phase that has a super high skill cap. The better you are at Karthus, he starts just winning every matchup. You start landing all your Qs and manipulating the wave properly. And it's one of those champions that at the same time also looks terrible if you can't land those Qs. So a lot of people consider it a very skillful champion. GBN grabs that one, and you just see this dedication to front-to-back team fighting out of both teams so far.
This is going to be a very different game from what we saw before. GBM was shut down early on in game number 1, but on a Karthus pickup, it's going to be very difficult to take that champion out of contention no matter how hard you focus down on that lane matchup, but also on the top side of the map. Now you have Solo and something, huge comfort pick for himself. We've seen his Gnar kind of been his go-to champion, and this opens up a ton of split push pressure on the map for him as he's going to be the one with advantages in this matchup.
Oh boy. So they do actually, like we said, end up with the Cho'Gath in the top side. Not quite what was expected, because we were talking about how each of those might have advantages. Licorice is, like I said, maybe the best Cho'Gath I've seen in North America so far. And it looks like they're going to say that they think they know this matchup maybe better against the Gnar with the Cho'Gath. So we'll have to see and keep our eye on that one, because at least initially I would have assumed that Maokai has the superior matchup. We've seen it a couple times in NALCS, and it does just fine as long as you make sure to use your Ws when he's in mini form and get some favorable trades. But either way, we're going to see the Cho'Gath instead. And then, of course, we have to talk about this Karthus.
Yeah, this is going to be very difficult to peel my eyes away from the Karthus. I mean, you said Licorice may be the best Cho'Gath you've seen in the North American scene. I mean, I think GBM, if his company is Froggen, which is a very difficult company to contend with, but Piglet out of the mid lane, he may be trying to make his own case for being one of the best Karthus in North America. I'm just more interested to kind of see how this factors into cross-map decision-making. Normally when you have something like a Soraka or like a Shen, which have been a little bit more meta kind of call, when you have that level 6 and you have the global pressure available, you wind up seeing teams play a little bit safer, but the Karthus damage coming out from that Requiem is massive, especially once he starts scaling into the later stages of the game. I want to see, does he go for something like we saw the Cassiopeia build, where he goes both Rod of Ages and tier stacking, so 50-minute team fights like last game? He could be a massive threat no matter how hard he gets shut down. There's a lot of potential for GBM to play around with here.
I think overall as well, eUnited probably has the team fight advantage in the late game. Not only is their frontline arguably superior with the Cho'Gath, Maokai, and Alistar all having huge defensive tools available to them, they have true damage spikes on the enemy frontliner if the Cho'Gath times his feast properly, as well as the fact that GBM's Karthus should be able to DPS down frontliners faster than the Orianna. Now they do have bigger wombo potential, arguably, with the Orianna pick, and the Taric can negate some team fighting pressure early on with his ultimate usage. But the question is, can they actually melt down eUnited's frontline before that wears off, and then eUnited can re-aggress onto GCU's frontline? It's going to be a very crazy team fight. But we have to wait till we get there, starting with laning phase, of course.
That's very true. And we have to see how they survive throughout the laning phase as well, because you mentioned Karthus can spam waves, wave clear to his heart's content, but the Orianna is kind of the quintessential safe pickup in the mid lane matchup. We'll have to see how that comes down into. And I actually just had to kind of check for myself. In the later game team fights, we have to bring it back to that point. But the Taric Cosmic Radiance could be a huge factor in deciding how these things wind up going. You mentioned Karthus having a massive amount of damage and then dying and then being able to use the Requiem in addition to having his Defile and just his Lay Waste deal additional damage. Taric Cosmic Radiance is a 2-second channel. Karthus Ultimate has a 3-second channel.
Well,
could be a big.
I would be pretty disappointed in GBM if he started channeling that with the Cosmic Radiance still up. Early on, what United's probably going to do in those kind of team fights is run in, bait out the Cosmic Radiance, pop their Gargoyle Stone Plate, end up in a situation where neither frontline's taking much damage, and then look to reinitiate and hopefully melt frontline faster. That said, there's a lot of outplay potential for both teams with the Gragas ultimate being able to knock people in. Like we said, the Orianna ultimate maybe grouping people up for big chain follow-ups he sees from the Gnar. Both teams have a lot of tools like that, and it really will mostly come down to execution.
And you got a lot of ways for the Orianna ball to get into somebody in the late game too, but in the lane phase here, it looks like Dandy might be the one trying to get some early advantages for his own top lane. Licorice Looks like he's content to keep Solo kind of in the middle of the area of the map here, as Dandy is waiting in the brush. Flash and Twisted Advance are available. We'll see if they try to capitalize on the Solo. The Rupture winds up landing first. The Ward is in the brush. There's the Twisted Advance to follow. Arcane Smash knocks him backwards, but first blood goes to Dandy.
Super well executed dive by eUnited there. Licorice positions himself to start cutting off Solo while attacking minions, so it looks like a very natural laning positioning out of Licorice, and then when he has that kind of cutoff set up, he's able to send up the Rupture onto Solo. They get that knock up onto him, and then the silence stops him from being able to flash out, which buys enough time for Dandy to get the flash chain CC with the Twisted Advance coming in, and then there's just too much damage for Solo to ever live. So really nice executed gank setup there by eUnited, and this is kind of what we were saying with how this top lane matchup goes, is it feels like Solo might have a hard time keeping up with the push that comes in. Ends up caught out of position there. Really clean gank out of eUnited.
In last game, it was the side of GCU that were getting a kill onto Licorice on the top side of the map, and then trying to press advantages that way because it was Santorin and Solo that combined together for that one. This time around, Licorice doesn't get the kill for himself. He gets an assist again, so Dandy on the Maokai still taking kills away from his Solo laners. But this time around, it's going to be A-OK, as Licorice will be able to shove his way away with that Glacial Shroud now picked up.
Already some very nice early armor pickups. Cho'Gath is also one of these champions that from ahead against squishier opponents, it becomes a complete nightmare because he ends up picking up the Righteous Glory early on, and then he just runs at you with that, applies a slow, you try and hop away as the Gnar, don't get enough distance, then he chain CCs the slow with his E, gets the W, the Q, and then after he gets you down low enough, is able to just chomp down on you and get that kill. So it's probably not enough to snowball that hard just off that one kill, especially since the first blood bonus did go over to Dandy. But at the same time, Solo will have to be careful, as Licorice has shown that he got the better of him in the Shen matchup. Might be able to do it again in the Gnar matchup.
Yeah, but Solo, of course, is on a little bit more of a comfort pick champion for himself in the Gnars. You see bottom side of the map definitely getting shut out by Mad Life and Rakars. It looks like Zeyzal was nowhere to be found. Looks like he's on warding duty in the river. Had to take a long way back around as Scuttle Crab is in control of eUnited to try to keep track of where Santorin's going to be in these early stages of the game. He has gone back to prepare boots for himself after his first little jungle clear, whereas now Dandy coming out of the jungle already has the Bammy Cinder acquired on the Maokai.
Overall, GCU doing fine. Still only 300 gold down, not the end of the world. Karthus has been farming out. I know we wanted to watch him a little bit, but too much action up in the top side.
That's true.
But, overall, you got to say this looks pretty good for eUnited. Alistar's a champion that, generally speaking, outperforms a lot of other tanks. Come team fighting phase, Taric might be one of the ones that can actually match up fairly well. His ultimate is just so high impact overall. And while the Headbutt Pulverize combo out of an Alistar can instantly change fights, especially when you throw the flash in there and maybe reposition by punting someone into your team, Taric can potentially cancel some of that out by getting the ultimate onto your target.
We see Santorin waiting in the top side. Looks like he was trying to dissuade a gank, or maybe going for a lane gank of his own. Is now Licorice is going to wind up getting stunned forward on by Solo. Just got walloped into place. The Rupture goes out. A flash waves. He tries to flash toward Dandy, but he will wind up going down as Santorin flashes after, and Solo gets the kill. Now Dandy's going to be turned on here, slowed out by the barrel, but he will be able to walk away.
A little bit of a ring around the rosy there as Dandy was up on the top side, and GCU pull the trigger first. They find the better angle, and Licorice almost able to kite that one out and maybe get away to his supporting Maokai, but not quite able to do so. Goes down and loses his flash as a result. So there you see Dandy in the river, potentially trying to set up around topside. GCU just pulls the trigger first. There, the Gnar knocks the Cho'Gath back, and that's one of the problems with Cho'Gath is the complete lack of mobility in his kit. Almost able to get out of there, not quite. They answer back. Gnar is able to pick up that kill. And you see him going for early Merc treads, realizing that kind of chain CC that can come in on the other side, equally terrifying. Does not want to have to worry about that, and hopefully finds himself with some opportunities where he gets that silence off a little bit faster, or the root, and can get his flash away.
He also has the range advantage over the Cho'Gath, so going to be content just to build a little bit more of the resistances. As a hawk shot from Deftly sails across the mid lane and sees, well, pretty much everybody from the side of GCU. It sees Solo walking back in, it sees Santorin moving to the bottom side of his jungle, and of course sees Fly on the Orianna moving down from mid lane. Speaking of that mid lane matchup, although there hasn't been nothing but farm going down right now, we see Fly pick up a Catalyst very early on this Orianna. So we'll see if he wants to go in for a Rod of Ages or maybe maybe something more along the lines of the Hextech GLP. Uncertain as to that, but GBM going for a lesser scaling kind of style of build. Picked up the Fiendish Codex extremely early on, signaling potentially a Morilla Namicon rush.
Feels like he definitely missed a back timing compared to Fly, where, you know, Fly already has that completed, whereas he's just went for that, like I said, early Fiendish Codex. Does not have any mana items right now. You know, Karthus does have some mana regen built into his kit with his E, but it's still something where if he was going to go tier early on, you think he would have wanted to gone back and pick that up as fast as he could. The fact that he has not done so maybe indicates that he's not going to go for that much of a you know, super mana scaling build.
And also, the addition of the Karthus pickup here, we forget a lot of times they go for the exhaust because they can get jumped on, but they also want to be able to keep people kind of within their defile and within their casting range of their abilities. So that opens up Zeyzal to go for this Ignite pickup, which will cut down on some of the healing and some of the, you know, sustain provided by that Mad Life Turret pick this time around. So now with a bit of an aggressive summoner spell on the bottom side, we still haven't seen much change in the actual dual lane matchup though.
It's also very useful into the Callista, because late game you grab so much of that lifesteal. Obviously Bramble Vest is great now that it has the Grievous Wounds passive attached to it, but sometimes Callista can work around that maybe. If there's a frontline member who doesn't have it, you focus him down if possible. And the Ignite just guarantees you're going to cut into that healing, as well as adding some potential all-in threat, because you do have a Headbutt Pulve combo into an Ash Arrow. That can be very frustrating to deal with for Callista, especially if the gank's coming in as well. So it just adds a little bit more pressure in the laning phase. And there's not really a great exhaust target on the side of GCU.
The only one could really be the Callista, but then in that case, you only really need one, and then she's done. So now eUnited, they got the first blood of the game, but they fall behind ever so slightly in gold count now, as that second kill in the game on the top side of the map going to Solo has propelled him to a early CS advantage, whereas eUnited will be the ones that try to go for the objective control this game, as they are going to be taking the Infernal Drake for themselves. No real vision control from the side of Goldcoin United, but there are some suspect pings coming out from eUnited in response. They get the Infernal Drake, but they might trade away the Rift Herald.
Pretty interesting decision by eUnited there. They sent the Hawkshot over to the Rift Herald, anticipating that it was going to be being done in response, but actually GCU had not started it off yet. And then you can see the Hawkshot go there, and you say, oh, they were scouting for this, let's go force it, and then you hear the Dragon go down. They're able to grab that one in response. Infernal Dragon probably still more worth it overall. We saw how important those were in the previous game where you're getting into late game 5v5 team fights. Karthus as well, a champion that does neutral objectives super fast, getting the bonus damage from only hitting a single target when choosing to melt that down, as well as having the Cho'Gath for securing those maybe come late game if they are forcing down an Infernal Dragon. We talked about the Callista pick being great for securing objectives when you have a lot of Ren stacks in. Cho'Gath, much the same way.
Yep, you just pop that Feast, and there's an extra amount of true damage on top of the Smite that you can combine with Dandy's Maokai. But now it's up to GCU to try to utilize this Rift Herald a little bit more effectively than eUnited did in game number 1. They tried to force it around a Dragon Pit fight and provide pressure across the bottom side of the map while they rotated towards the mid lane to try to force that tower down. And Goldcoin United stopped them on all sorts of fronts. So we'll see where Santorin winds up utilizing that Eye of the Herald and where they actually wind up putting pressure down on the map. Is no early towers this game so far, but there's a roam from Zeyzal.
Gets the punt back in, gets the pulverize.
And he actually flash afterwards too, just to secure that one, but Fly is going to be A-okay. The Nature's Grass comes out from Danny on the opposite side, but everybody from GCU is there and ready to respond.
Didn't even have to lose a summoner to get out of there. eUnited played that one a little too aggressive on the side of Zeyzal. He got the punt back close to the Maokai, but then went for a flash pulverized follow-up. Did not want to give him a chance to flash out, hoping to chain CC it with the Maokai, but Danny did not want to pull the trigger. He knew that the rest of GCU was coming in to protect him. So Fly is able to just walk away, doesn't burn his cleanse, doesn't burn his flash, and there Zeyzal loses his. Small over-aggression on their side. I like the idea overall because it kind of felt like GCU wants to use that Rift Herald around the mid lane, where that Karthus is, make his lane a lot longer, expose him a little bit. Like you said, he is prone to ganks potentially. And if you can use the Rift Herald to force down that turret, that would have been great. eUnited kind of get the jump around the mid lane and force GCU to respond defensively as opposed to aggressively, but still maybe not worth the flash on your support.
So without that available, also now Zeyzal's threat, kind of a 2v2 situation in the bottom lane, is also somewhat gone. The Cosmic Radiance and more telegraphed play of the Alistar having to get something in your face so they headbutt Pulverize combo. It means that GCU has to play a little bit safe and a little bit back further, and Alistar has no kill threat on them. The Callista matchup here into the Ashe, still going slightly in favor of Rakara, but definitely kind of hanging tight, going toe-to-toe in the CS department here. Both of these marksmen on the bottom side of the map were relatively quiet for the large majority of game number 1 until the team fight phase really came about. Then they pretty much exploded with definitely Tristana kind of being the sole damage threat in the later stages of the game, and then Ricard on the Callista being kind of second fiddle to the Cassiopeia that was extremely ahead.
And once again, eUnited kind of has that global advantage, whereas in the previous game they had the Teleport LeBlanc, now they have the Karthus. So if GCU wants to force down around the bot lane, they have to be very aware of that potential problem. And it feels like GCU is content to just kind of farm up on the bot side and avoid any potential issue that could come around with playing down a global, and instead focus on controlling around that mid and top side. That return gank that happened was actually huge, because off that, Solo's been able to build a 30 CS lead. We were saying, you know, maybe this is not as good of a matchup as the Maokai. They took the Cho'Gath anyways. GCU was able to find a kill onto Solo, and with that, he's done a great job of kind of bullying out Licorice for the most part after that, making it a little bit annoying for him to keep CSing. And overall, that's going to play to be a pretty big factor over the course of this game, because as the turrets start falling, it becomes a longer lane. Cho'Gath does not have great mobility for getting out if you have yourself getting chased down by a frozen mallet Gnar.
See Santorin getting a little bit pushy into eUnited's jungle, but Dandy is there to just kind of block him from going forward a little bit. Zazel as well in the area to help ward clear ever so slightly. And actually the Rift Herald looks like it may have been expiring, so Santorin's going to be utilizing this one in the mid lane. GCU are rotating Ricard up from the bottom side as well. They want to try to get something off of this Rift Herald. He's going to charge forward onto that tower. It's not a lot of HP left on it, so they will end up getting the first tower of the game off of Rift Herald.
Good move by GCU there, rotating multiple members up. Not that easy for eUnited to walk up and try and damage that thing before it gets its charge off. Takes about 40% of the turret's HP, and then the rest of them can finish it off. Question is, what can eUnited do with this now? Maybe this opens up Fly to start roaming around the bot side as well. So if he can get the push advantage on the mid lane on the Karthus, get moving on the map, meet up with Santorin, they can get a diver on the bot lane and maybe have too much of an impact in that dive that the Karthus ultimate can't cancel it out. That's going to be the next big play, is who can really blow the game open. Ocean Dragon is spawning in 45 seconds, so maybe both teams start grouping up around that one.
And at the same time, Licorice not yet level 11, whereas Solo has hit level 11, so he has level 2 of his Gnar ultimate, although he has just gone mini, so he's a little bit tired. But give it 30 seconds or so, and he may be able to stack up a Gnar bar to teleport into that bottom lane fight. We already see a couple of control wards for GCU around the bottom area of the map, and Zazel doing his supportly duties and trying to clear out the pits and make sure that this one could potentially go in favor of eUnited. We see Santorin making his way down there as well, as the bottom side of the map has relatively been uncontested, save for, you know, whenever a Drake is available. Even then, we haven't seen a lot of fights over them. Even the game number 1, when there was a fight over it, there was the Rift Herald going bot lane and eUnited going mid lane, and nobody actually fought around the Dragon Pit.
I think that's the thing, though, is that GCU has said they're content going late. eUnited knows they're content going late, and it keeps feeling like eUnited gets forced into GCU's game plan a little bit. It's not that they're not trying to be more aggressive in the early game, but GCU either does a good job countering the play or making their own instead. So in game 1, there's that play on the top side that, you know, Licorice still ended up getting the better of that matchup, but went down early on. Similarly, this time Licorice does get a little bit ahead with Dandy, but then Santorin does a good job countering that one out. And for the most part, GCU has done a good job limiting eUnited's early game options and forcing them to play this late game.
Yeah, now it's GCU that take a second tower of the game, so they're the ones that are 2 towers ahead early on and have themselves about a 3,000 gold advantage. They've also kind of made their way down into the bottom side of the map, and vision control has kind of been going back and forth between both of these teams. Now both Santorin and Dandy are on the bottom side of the map. Now I want to see what the big factor is in this game. Is actually going to stop myself for a second as Dandy wants it going in. A headbutt over the wall from Zazel. The Enchanted Crystal Arrow goes wide. The Nature's Grasp doesn't quite land as well. There was a flash forward there coming out as well from Santorin, as now the teleport runner coming in. Solo's joined the fray, but he's a little teeny tiny Gnar, and GBM has joined the fight as well as the Karthus locks up. The Orianna command Shockwave winds up getting 2 as it's a double kill, but the Karthus Requiem is channeled, and it's not going to find a kill on anybody. In fact, it's Solo that picks up a 3rd, this time on the Deathly. Now Licorice is coming to the fray, but there's no one else left to play with him. A double kill for Solo.
eUnited try to force down around that bot lane. They use so many of their engage tools early on in that fight for very little return. Eventually, the teleport finishes by Licorice, and he has a great Righteous Glory Rush to force down onto Ricard and able to blow him up, but they had blown so many other resources already that they had a hard time picking this fight. You'll see the war go over. They say Mad Life's a little bit too far forward. Let's force this fight onto him. They missed their CC combination, and you see very smartly by GCU, they find the one tree or cat in this instance that's already been absorbed, and they hide behind it. Licorice gets this great flank off, but like we said, already Dandy low health. Zazel's ultimate is ticking down. Even though they blow up Ricard, no one can get onto Fly. GBM goes down as well. They win that fight. Fly looks like he overextended down this bot side, though.
Yeah, he wanted to get that tower on the bottom lane. Has to bot the cleanse to try to get away, but Dandy and Zazel don't have enough damage, so just with the cleanse alone, Fly's able to get out alive.
GCU, 5,000 gold advantage after that 4 for 2. And now GBM, extended in the mid lane, might be going down.
Santorin's here. The explosive cast is not quite up, but he doesn't even need it. Solo now on a rampage on this comfort pick of Gnar.
Demonstrating that it was perfectly fine to give those 2 tanks away. He gets the Gnar pickup in response. And GCU, despite losing that Infernal Dragon earlier, are doing a great job snowballing now. All outers are down. They got the Ocean Dragon for themselves. They got a ton of kills. They got CS advantages, everything coming up GCU.
Yeah, and eUnited just have kind of fallen apart at this point in time. The game plan for GCU we heard in the beginning of the day was they wanted to make sure they can contain GBM. They didn't want him influencing side lanes. And eUnited were like, we need to protect GBM. We need to make sure he can influence the side lanes. Then they put him on Karthus. He has the Requiem available that could influence the side lanes in a fight or a trade scenario, but basically confines him to the mid lane. And GCU are just like, all right, we're going to get Solo a good matchup. We're going to continue to first pick Kalista, so Ricard has a good matchup on the bottom side of the map. And they are running away with this one. Less than 20 minutes into the game, they're threatening a tier 2 tower in the bottom lane. It's the 4th tower of the game. And as you mentioned, 5,000 going on to now 6,500 gold in Gold Coin United's advantage. They're putting the coin in Gold Coin United.
Oh yeah, they got a whole lot of money. Gonna go back right now. They already spent after that big dragon fight, but topside and jungle still have over 1,000 gold each to cash in on. Like you were saying though, I think GCU ending up with strong lanes overall. eUnited keeps forcing around the top half of the map. They do have a ton of setup down the bot side. If you get a good angle onto Rikara, there's no reason a Maokai Alistar can't kill a Kalista, and then maybe you can start swaying that matchup so they have to play defensively. You get these 5-man dives with the Karthus ultimate down the bot side. eUnited feels like they play so much around Licorice in these first 2 games that when he doesn't get super far ahead or the enemy is able to somewhat neutralize him, they struggle after that point.
Well, game 1 they had to play around Licorice because GBM got shut down. Now at this point, GBM is on the pick that needs to scale into the later stages of the game. So they need to wind up trying to buy time for him, but it's just not working out. Solo, gonna get the flash out of Deathly as he transforms and throws a boulder after him.
Pretty scared of that 4-kill Gnar in the long lane. Deathly was trying to push that out, but Solo collapsed on him. And one of the things that happens in these kind of games where you have a ton of tanks picked is it's actually relatively snowbally because there's so many tools to engage with that team that has all those tanks. If the other team falls behind, not only do you take less damage, you don't have to be as scared as turrets, you can brute force down around objectives because you don't take much damage from the Baron itself. There's so many ways that you can start really, really brute forcing things. Here you see a dive coming in on GBM.
Oh, and Solo just hopping over the wall. Even gets the exhaust on him, but that's not going to do anything. Unstoppable 5-1 and 2. You almost forget that Solo gave up first blood in this game as the rest of GCU comes to his aid, takes down their 5th tower of the game.
Perfectly illustrating my point there. That Gnar pickup hops the wall, jumps onto GBM, just autos him down through the exhaust. His team comes in and gives him a little bit of support with a shield and the heal, but he walks away with over 80% HP after sitting under the turret for 3 or 4 turret shots. And with that, they're going to force onto this Baron, taking no damage from that, as well as Kalista builds up those Ren stacks. eUnited are going to try and force, though. Licorice does have flash, could go for a feast.
Here comes the Nature's Grass. Slowly but surely locks on the multiple members of Gold Coin United, but they are undeterred from this Baron. Licorice is on the backside, has the flash available. Looking to see if they're going to wind up going for a fight or not. Zazel's going to get locked up the command. Shockwave, Cosmic Radiance will keep Rikara and Mad Life alive. Solo, in the meantime, is dominating. The Requiem is channeled because GBM's come back alive, but nobody dies. Definitely able to find a kill on the Rikara, but he gets belly bumped by Santorin on the backside. Fly's able to clean up the kill on the Licorice. A double kill for the Orianna follows up, and Gold Coin United are cleaning up eUnited.
Great decision there to turn off the Baron. They saw Licorice hovering around the backside. eUnited clearly focusing on the steal. They missed position a little bit. GCU turn off, get a good fight. Small mistake by Ricard there, trying to continue on to Definitely instead of focusing down the front line. And Licorice, he kind of ends up trading his life unnecessarily there, but it's overall still a great play out of GCU, grabbing those 4 kills. There's no threat available to potentially steal this one away. They have the smite. They're going to grab their Baron. They slow it down, giving time for Ricard to respawn, making sure they get that 5-man Baron buff.
Making it a team effort, as you mentioned. The call to turn off the Baron here from GCU after the initiation's been used up by eUnited. I mean, there's nothing left to lock them down with, so they just decided to go in.
Right, you see it was a good decision by GCU to kind of let their frontline members absorb that Maokai ultimate so the backline members are safe, and then they just force down with all these engage tools onto the side of eUnited. Multiple people start getting low, but then of course you have the Terror Cult to negate that. Ricard just goes a little bit too far forward onto Definitely, maybe not calculating for that Karthus ultimate to come in and sway that fight in his advantage. So Definitely wins that one, but the rest of GCU finish off Licorice, turn on to Definitely, get the kill, go back onto Baron, and now 10,000 gold advantage just 23.5 minutes into the game.
We see Ricard's Kalista 0-2 and 6. It's not the biggest threat in these team fights. As you mentioned, the securing of objectives or just the overall setup potential and the ability to throw Tarek into these fights has been absolutely key for him. And as Freeze mentioned on the desk, going for a second item QSS to keep himself alive as much as possible. So even if they're trying to lock down on him in team fights, they really can't. There's a cleanse on Orianna, so they can't lock down on her. Solo's so far ahead that it's going to be really difficult to lock down on him. He's got an adaptive helmet and a Gargoyle Stone Putter. He's got 3 completed items, and Licorice only has a Righteous Glory and boots.
Freak, a notable adaptive helm hater. I'm going to wonder if he likes it in this instant, just because, you know,
Karthus. Hear from him.
What?
We'll get to hear from him about it.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I hope he's listening. Because, you know, you do have Karthus, who has a lot of repeated damage on some spells with his Q and E. See if he's a fan of it this time. I personally think it's not too bad. GCU have the Baron buff, though. All outer turrets down, aside for the inner turret and the top side. So a little bit more to grab there, but they're probably going to be looking to try and take one of these base turrets pretty quickly.
Yeah, I mean, Baron buff still taken away for about 1 minute and 40 seconds. They have multiple lanes already pushed up, and Solo's going into the top side of the map, where the only remaining outer tower is for United. So Gold Coin United with the 1-1-3 setup here. They have the Baron buff minions acting as kind of a half an extra member. United are still struggling to clear out waves. Ashe has an Infinity Edge and a Static Shift to her aid, so she will be the main source of wave clear, as Karthus with the magic damage won't be content to wave clear against Baron buffed up minions, and nobody can really touch Solo, as he did have a little bit of help from Fly, shadowing up towards the top side. That's the 6th tower of the game going down in favor of GCU. 11,000 gold advantage for them. This is only game number 2. There's still a couple games left to play, maybe only 1 at this point.
Yeah, I mean, this is shaping up to be a much more dominant game out of GCU than I was predicting. I was saying I thought this series could be very close based off game 1, where a couple things didn't go eUnited's way, but GCU adapting very well to the series so far, have a monstrous game 2 on their hands.
Saw Santorin dancing on the fact that there was a ward over there waiting for a super to come up so they can continue to deny vision outside of eUnited's base. Still only have 30 seconds left on this Baron buff. They've been able to get some crucial outer towers and advantages with that one. Solo, in the meantime, has also been wearing away on both Licorice and the top lane tower at the same time, so it seems. Fly has to back away from the mid lane, though, so the rest of GCU's core and the bottom side of the map needs to be a little bit careful. Looks like they might be trying to get a little bit of damage. They are still very low range, as Kalista's the longest range champion in that mix up there. Solo takes a little bit of tower damage, trying to get a little too gutsy to dive down on Licorice. Licorice just has the feast available, so Solo has to be careful. But GCU at this point in time, their Baron buff is running out. They're trying to take pot shots left at the towers as long as they can. They actually get a chunk down to the Zazel in this mid lane as well. They may be trying to force at least 1 tower down. But eUnited, the Baron buff is gone, and that's the trigger to go in. Cosmic Radiance will keep Santorin and Mad Life alive. The Nature's Grasp comes out. Now they're trying to lock down on the Licorice. Dazzle will land as Solo comes back into the fray here. Red buff was taken, so he's able to heal himself back up A-OK off of that one, in addition to the Ocean Drake. But nobody from either side winds up going down.
Fly had a really nice...
Oh, never mind. Fly got GBM in the mid lane over there, as the Requiem's going to get charged just as a parting gift, and we panned away from the mid lane for 2 seconds, and GBM dies.
And he goes for the classic solo queue frustrated Karthus ultimate, where he got taken down, throws it out in a situation where it's not going to have any impact on the game. Obviously not having a great series so far, getting taken advantage of in game 1 and game 2. And with that, GCU cracks the 2 side lane inhibitor turrets right away, going to be able to grab the mid lane as well. They might go for the clean sweep of the base just off that pickoff. Yeah,
and a fairly average Baron power play, about 3,149 gold in their favor, but that's going to be, oh, they left the bottom inhibitor alive ever so slightly. They're going to take the mid lane inhibitor, and we'll see if they sneeze on the bottom one or not, but they have to back away because, well, GBM almost back alive. And they've been staying in this base now for pretty much 3 minutes.
Yeah, surprised they back out there, but we'll take another look at this solo kill. GBM just walks a little too far forward, eats the W, the Q, the auto.
Ooh.
He pulls it back. Very clean out of fly, and there you see that frustrated ultimate. GCU playing it slow, kind of how they're known to. They probably could have stayed around that base and grabbed the other inhibitors, but they're going to back out instead. Reset on the map. I'm sure they were sitting on quite a chunk of gold.
There's an Infernal Drake and a Baron buff spawning at the same exact time. Very rare that you see those two synced up like that, but GoldCoin United with these massive gold advantages, huge things in their favor. 14,000 gold in their favor. A 5-0-4 fly, a 7-1-3 solo. Now picking up a Frozen Mallet in addition to all the other arsenal of tanky and somewhat damagey items he has with the Black Cleaver picked up in tow. A Death Cap and a Void Staff already picked up for Fly, so he is hitting like a truck with these ults. That's what we saw happen to GBM there. He hasn't gone for the Rod of Ages. He doesn't have the traditional tanky Karthus build. There's no Rylai's Crystal Scepter he's seen some of the Karthus is building for, so he's pretty much made a paper.
Pretty much. I mean, Karthus is sometimes in the past got tanky, like you said, with the Rylai's and Rod of Ages build. He's going for pure damage, though, which I think is the right thing to do, given that you're against such a tanky team comp. Sure, you can maybe run in there and get annoying and be slightly difficult to kill, especially when you throw Zhonya's in, but at the end of the day, you do need to be able to kill the enemy's team's tanks. So he went for the aggressive build. The only problem is they got absolutely snowballed on, and GCU not even going to bother setting up around this Infernal Dragon. They're going to go look right for this inhibitor, but Zeyzal's making a big flank attempt here.
Yeah, United maybe looking to go for something here. A flash and pulverize as well. They land down on the looks like Fly in the front side with a big command shockwave. Pulls him in, says, come at me, bro. They're finally able to pick up a kill onto the Orianna. The Requiem's going to be channeled, but GCU are too healthy. There was a Cosmic Radiance to cut through that damage. A triple kill for Rakara, an ace for GCU, and now they're in the base, and this is going to be a pretty darn quick game two.
Flashing in, trying to end this game sub 30 minutes. Looks like it might tick just over. But GCU have a commanding Game 2 performance. They take out eUnited in that bot lane fight as they look for one flank attempt. Not a bad idea overall, but the Cosmic Radiance too strong. It's exactly what I was saying. If you punt somebody in, they're able to still get that off onto them, especially from behind. Not enough damage. And GCU stomp Game 2.
GoldCoin United making it look, I mean, to be completely honest, it looked pretty easy that game. eUnited was going toe-to-toe with them into the 40-plus minutes of game number 1. But in game number 2, GoldCoin United, despite giving up first blood on the top side of the map, Solo has a dominating performance on the Gnar. He just gets that one trade kill with a little bit of help from Santorin and completely flips that matchup back in its favor.
And as much as we saw Fly doing at the end of the game, there was actually Gnar who had the most damage in the game. So Solo had a great performance. Sure, I'm sure a lot of that damage comes from wailing away on a big ol' tank Cho'Gath in the top lane.
He's got 3 tanks to hit on the opposing
He's got a lot of people
too,
to kind of hit, I understand, but he had some huge team fights as well. So great performance out of Solo, especially given the fact that he got targeted early on. And yeah, that's the scary thing, is we haven't seen much out of this early game from eUnited. Both times, Dandy tried to make a play, level 3, first round mid side. That didn't work out that well in game 1, where it ends up being a 1-for-1 trade. This time, targets top side. They do get that kill, but it shows Santorin knows how to control a game, as much as some people kind of bag him for that he's only a control jungler. That can be exactly what your team needs sometimes. The fact that he says, oh, my top side might be getting a little unstable, I'll go up there and influence that. And that's exactly what his team needed.
You hear people mentioning like the likes of junglers like Reignover now that we're in a tank meta. This is like his style of play and the way that he's going to be able to take over games. This just lends extremely well to the way Santorin wants to play the map as well. I mean, we heard from him in the beginning here that the fact of the matter is that even though Dandy's more of a hard carry jungler, the meta's kind of gone back in his favor, and this might tip the scales in the matchup in his way. And even though he hasn't been straight stomping his jungle opponent, his team is coming out ahead because of advantages he's able to either get for them in the early game or negate the fact that Dandy's trying to do anything whatsoever on the map.
The big thing, of course, as well, is just GBM kind of nowhere to be seen right now, really getting taken apart by Fly for the most part. A lot of this is team influence for the most part, but it's still not much of a showing. He had some good flanks in game 1 after falling very far behind, and then here in game 2, just a complete non-factor on the Karthus pick, something we were getting very excited about. Couldn't wait to see it in the late game. Well, there's no late game at 30 minutes.
The late game came in about 10 minutes in that game for GoldCoin United. They already had a multiple, like 4,000 or 5,000 gold lead at that point, so not quite that much, but like by the time it was 20 minutes, it was an insurmountable advantage. advantage. And one of the things we had coming into this, there was kind of a preview article that was released where we said that, you know, the main matchup here may be the mid lane. And it was big influence in the spring finals when Phoenix was the hard carry for GCU. And this time around, it was more about the fact that, you know, Fly just kind of has to keep GBM in check and make him kind of play more like, you know, his former NRG GBM as opposed to eUnited's GBM. At this point in time, we haven't seen those flashes of GBM we've seen throughout the Challenger regular split.
I think this is the kind of thing that people were kind of, like you said, with NRG holding against him, that he did take some resources in the mid lane early on with a lot of ganks, but didn't see much return for them, didn't stomp early games, and come late game, yeah, he's fine, but he has this tendency to lose lane harder than he should and get exposed. And then here, like you said, I mean, he was doing fine. They bring the Rift Herald in the mid lane, they crack that mid turret, and then from there, he's exposed in the mid lane, he starts dying more often, not able to find that team fight early on in the bot lane.
Yeah, and it may have been, you know, just a very quick game and a surprising game from them. So believe it or not, we're already time to send it back to Degon and the analysts to see what they make of that game.
Thank you very much, Tom. I mean, guys, GCU, second game in a row, and we have to talk about the team compositions here because we got to see a pretty cool interaction there at the end. But why don't you break it down for us real quick there, Freeze?
Yeah, so there was the first pick, Kalista. They prioritized the champion because, like, when we played, we both felt that it's really strong, and then United doesn't really care about it. And then United was like, hey, yeah, we got Maokai, we got Cho'Gath, we got the tanks, right? But they got baited into the composition they weren't comfortable with. Because when you get these tanks, you basically say, we want a team fight. Right. We don't want a split push. We don't want to, you know, like a snowball early game. We want to just scale and team fight. And then they didn't build the comp around those champions. While when you look at GCU, they had Gnar, they had Orianna, the most two comfortable champions for their solo laners. Right. And they had Kalista and Taric. And that screams at you. We will be better and team fighting no matter what you pick. So you already see the problem when one team tries to pick two champions for team fighting, and then the other team picks even better team fighting comp.
Right, because Karthus is not a good team fighter in a heavy tank metagame. Karthus' AP scaling is actually really low, so even though, look, you think of him as a high damage mid laner, and he did the most on the team, to be fair to GBM, his scaling is not good. Like, you buy a bunch of flat pen, and then that's pretty much all your damage. Like, once you have rank 3 Requiem, like, that doesn't get any higher in damage, really, so, like, the 7,000 health Gnar, like, literally ignores Requiem, and you're like, well, maybe hit the Orianna, but it's just not enough. And yeah, you had Ashe, who is wanting for the long-range arrows. She wants the single target pickoffs. Like, Requiem's great when there's a fight in bot lane, and you're holding on to your lane, and Orianna's there, and you're there, but you're helping the bot lane fight. But there were no picks, there was no 1v1s, there was no pickoffs. I mean, if you hit the Taric, it gets Kalisted back. If you hit the Gragas, he just body slams away. So it felt like those picks, what you actually picked the champions for, really never came through.
Yeah, I feel like if you pick Karthus, you want to extend laning phase as long as you want, and you want to have a stronger laners. If you have stronger bottom, stronger top lane, with Karthus, that's how you want to play. Extend the laning phase and keep 2v2ing with Karthus all 1v1ing, and that way you will win the game. But that didn't happen at all. They sort of like farm scaled, hoped for Karthus somehow to snowball and then team fight well, but Karthus, as we said, not a very good team fight champion in this meta.
Yeah, and that didn't quite happen. We have a pretty cool replay here. That last fight at the end, it looked like eUnited might have had a chance to come back in here, but Goldcoin United, Taric changing this fight here, Freak.
Yeah, and it's really cool. We saw Talisman of Ascension. Alistair is the big playmaker, because the thought is like, okay, Fly is crushing us. We need some way to pick off the Orianna. Pops the Talisman, goes for headbutt, waits, pulverizes. Here comes just the damage, but Mad Life puts the ulti in time. They don't have the burst because, lo and behold, you have a Karthus and an Ashe. It doesn't kill an Orianna in 2.5 seconds. It's too late for you. There's no damage output there. The Wombo combo comes back in. You get the Mega Gnar, you get the Shockwave, and it's an easy cleanup there. Obviously, Blade of the Ruin King on Kalista with the Hurricane. Great at killing free tanks.
Yeah, and you can see so easily how the comps are different, right? GCU just press R's, wins the game. You know, like, just engage on us. We have Taric, we'll press R, Gnar is gonna 5-man ultimate, Orianna's gonna 5-man ultimate. That's it. And then you look at United again, and how do you team fight with this comp? How do you win the game? You have to identify what is your win condition. And if you do that, then it's much easier for you to know how to play the game, but they just didn't know how to play the thing.
Well, and I think a big part of that was that early on in the game, we got to see the double ganks in the top lane. First for eUnited, Goldcoin United's top laner solo getting caught out, getting killed. But then Santorin did a great thing by going back, feeding his top laner the kill, and then Gnar versus Cho'Gath, that just goes straight into Gnar, doesn't it?
Right, it's interesting. I think the metagame as it stands right now, Gnar is probably the best top laner in the metagame, because the metagame is everyone's picking top lane tanks blind. Now,
Yeah, that's
if
true.
teams learn to play Aurelia, Gnar's no longer the best champion in the metagame because there's counter picks that teams are willing to bring out. But until we're in a world where the counters to Gnar are popular, Gnar is the best in the metagame. And that's the way I use the term metagame. That's the way I think about champ select. And so if you're in a world where Cho and Maokai are getting blinded, like, I wonder if I can play a black cleaver user who's good at, oh, right, Gnar exists, great. And he's going to win every matchup. And he's going to win in team fights. And I mean, it was a situation where we had sort of 2 carries versus 2.5 carries. So Gnar gets to kind of chip in at the very end of it all if people are trading kills.
I agree with that to a certain extent.
Sure.
For if you have very good coordinated teams, that's why Gnar's like analysis a bit less seen than in Challenger, for example. You can play around it. You know, you have your tank that can engage all the time and is tanky all the time. When Gnar has to build up his rage board, transfer into a tank, and then do something, right? But it's still there. You can play around it. Gnar is one of the better laners and top laners, but he's not the best. You know, I don't think he's the best.
That's
but
fine.
you know, like
That's
we
your
can
opinion.
disagree.
Absolutely.
Well, we have a good
You're allowed.
example. We have a good example of kind of what not to do here. At 17 minutes, after a little bit of slow play, teleports down on the bottom side of the map, and Gnar does end up making an entrance here. It did look good for eUnited yet again, but the teleports changed the play here.
Right, it was honestly a good start. You saw they went for the Asher, they're going for the big cross map play. They try to get the burst damage out, and I think they managed to pick off one at the very start with the body slam landing. They picked off Rakara, but then Shockwave lands on 2, and suddenly immediately the card that is popped. Okay, you get the Shockwave out, but now there's follow-up damage. Now it's 2 carries versus 1. The chase through actually comes in. They're able to eventually knock down that Ash on the bot side of it, because if you're trading carry for carry for carry, well, the Gnar lives at the end of it all with a black cleaver and chases you down, which is, you know, after you got to ult out. You know, the timing was nice. Of course, he ended up being Mega Gnar at the right time. That's, you know, that's convenient and very cute. But when he transforms back, he's still a damage user. He's got a black cleaver. He's going to chase you down.
Yeah, they managed to insta-kill Kalista there, and then Karthus suicided to like pop up his ultimate, but then you have tanks, and then tanks just...
Yeah.
Yeah, Karthus ult.
They'll work you down eventually.
I don't really care about Karthus, so I'll just kill your carries, and you know, that's it. So yeah, the Karthus pick, I didn't like it.
Well, we were a little bit critical there of GBM in the first game, saying that, hey, he needs to go ahead and have more of an impact in this game. He picks a late scaling champion that does damage, like you said, he does the most damage on the team. But right there wasn't enough damage. And on the opposite side, you have an Orianna who loves to get to the late game as well. And by that replay there, one big shockwave leads Orianna into that late game push.
I mean, Orianna's a great scaler. I think she's definitely a top-tier mid laner right now in League of Legends. Works well in the metagame, right? If you want to engage with a Maokai, it's there for a shotgun delivery. Do you need to carry a team at the end? You can do that too. It's really great. I think she works so well for herself. And yeah, I would have liked to see GBM pick something that wasn't Karthus, pick more of an AP scaler, the Victor. I know Azir's really fringe right now, but like this is a great metagame for Azir to work if there ever is. Of course, it's in 15. He has buffs as well, so we probably do see him show up. That's my opinion. Maybe we don't, but I want to see a more traditional mage out of GBM. Assassin didn't work, and an anti-squishy Karthus didn't work. He needs to be a real team fighting mage.
Free, so like right now, 0-2, eUnited, what do you do? Like personally, what do you think
they have to try something that has worked for them? And when you look at them in the past patches, they always played carry junglers, right? We've seen then they played 2 tanks, didn't work twice. Maybe we'll see them go back to like a more carry-oriented jungler where he can feel more comfortable. Kha'Zix, for example, is a good example of Vitality champion. It's not the best meta pick for jungler, but it's very comfortable with them, and they know how to play around it. So that might be what they will try, because it's 0-2. They have to try something. It didn't work the 2 games for them. So we'll see.
Well, we'll get to see what eUnited is going to pull out. We're going to step away while these teams gear up for Game 3, and it's already match point for Goldcoin United. Stick around to see if they claim victory in a 3-0 sweep or if eUnited's able to strike back and give us Game 4. Don't touch that browser.
The Rupture winds up landing first. The ward is in the brush. There's a twisted advance to follow. Arcane smash knocks him backwards. Solo just got walloped into place, but Rupture goes out of flash away as he tries to flash toward Dandy.
Keep cutting. I'm dead. Keep cutting. Slow. Nice. Get there. Carthus no flash.
Nice.
Look good.
Cosmic Radiance will keep Rakara and Mad Life alive. Solo, in the meantime, is dominating. Definitely able to find a kill on the Rakara, but he gets belly bumped by Santorin on the backside. Flies able to clean up the kill on the Licorice. They're finally able to pick up a kill onto the Orianna. The Requiem's going to be channeled, but GCU are too healthy. There was a Cosmic Radiance to cut through that damage. A triple kill for Rakara.